Welcome to an episode of the ThunderCast. This is Chris McGowan. I'm here with Ali McKee. How are you, Ali?
Great, Chris.
Hopefully that scared the living shit out of you.
You really did. That was
Okay.
wonderful.
For those that don't know it, Ali happens to be the ThunderLabs General Manager of Operations and Sales. She also happens to be my partner. Hooray!
We're getting that right out there. Stop.
Yeah,
Leaving nothing to secret.
Exactly right. Oh, why would it be? Everyone knows anyway. We thought we'd stick to the line of how ThunderLabs is and be disruptive, do things differently, and record a podcast together, which is incredibly uncomfortable.
Yeah.
The subject matter of today's podcast is career transition. It is about coming from industry. It's about being a mum. It's about balancing, being a single mum, juggling kids, working with a partner, all of the above, and transitioning in career. And there's a lot in that. And we've only got 45 minutes. I'm not sure we'll get through it all.
We'll give it a go.
We'll give it a go, as always, right? Mm-hmm. The question I always ask, as you know, is like, what's on your mind at the moment? And I didn't mean to lead you with what I've just said, but but I will lead you. When you think of what you've done coming from print into technology, what are the big ahas you think you've had along the way? Like, what's really gotten you?
I guess it's really nice to realize what you're capable of doing. I think that print was something that was my career for a very long time. I was in printing when I stopped work to have my babies, and I came back to print because it was safe. I knew I could do it, and it didn't really challenge me. I am loving the daily challenge of what I do now and the constant test of how much more can I learn and how much more can I expand, my knowledge around this multi-practice business that we're running.
This expression comes to mind that life begins at the edge of your comfort zone. And I acknowledge what you've just said about that you're loving the daily challenge. It made me think about life begins at the edge of your comfort zone. Do you think that it's a lease of life doing something so different? And do you think that women... No, I'm not. There's brushstrokes, right? Because it could apply to men too. But women, I'm asking from your perception perspective, are forced to accept comfort zone rather than being pushed or pushing themselves because of the expectation on them. Because this is one of the things I've been reflecting on for myself. I've never felt more pushed in my life for my own circumstances. But I wonder for you and your circumstances, what do you observe of? Like you said, you took the job because, you knew print. It was safe in quotation marks because this is audio, not video. What does that have you reflect on about life at the edge of your comfort zone and leases of life?
I think about most household environments with children under the age of, say, 15. And not in all cases. I acknowledge that this isn't across the board, but in majority of cases, the mother becomes the more primary careholder for the children. The person who's doing the school pickups and the runarounds to all the activities, and the mental load of that is like a full-time job. It really is exhausting. I mean, you know that you've been a single dad, you've had to do that mental load yourself. So it doesn't just apply to women, and having that alone as your daily balance is huge. And then to add on to it a career where you're pushing yourself and you're on, you're at that threshold all the time where you're having to learn and you're having to be switched on and connected and engaged in everything that you're doing is a challenge. How much mental load can you take on? So I do think that it seems like going back to, coming back into a career that's safe and easy feels more comfortable for a lot of women under pressure from a family environment, because it doesn't overload you cognitively. It's not too much. So coming into a career where, I'm constantly pushing myself, it's finding that balance, right, between being a mum and also being the GM at ThunderLabs, and making sure that I'm showing up for both of them all the time.
It has me then looping back to the first question about the aha moments. It's a challenge. It's how much capacity do you have, for being a mum that shows up and an employee that shows up. So what are the revelations again? I mean, this is a different way of asking the same question. What are the revelations, do you think, for you in terms of those moves that you've made, being a mum, being an employee, pushing boundaries, not playing it safe? That's effectively what you're saying. And don't hold back, right? Not that you would. So I'm just trying to encourage you that, anybody who's made it into 5 minutes so far is interested. So, because if you think about who we're talking to here, it's it's other mums, actually. It's mums or dads who have had a period off work. And, we talk to them all the time. I've had this time off, sabbatical by choice or by force, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I'm considering what's next. Yeah. So you've pushed the boundaries. You've done something you've never done before. You've got a job of responsibility. We're not a small company. What are the ahas? What are you really going, fuck, I am wrangling with this. This is a thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess the first thing I sort of think about is one of those aha moments is the more you challenge yourself, the more you can challenge yourself. It's that muscle that you're building and exercising. So something that I may have said previously, I just can't do that. It's not even in my capability. I'm now realizing how capable I actually am to stretch myself. And the more I push myself, the more I can find, the next gear, the more I can push myself. So, it's a big aha moment for how much I've limited myself in the past. I guess the other, aha moment for me is how much I love how empowering I found it, having the responsibility of my role in this company and, and what it means to me and what it means to us as a family, and, how much more motivated I am, I guess, to make it work, because there's no choice. It has to work. And how I see that playing out in the way that I think the way that I interact with my kids and the way I interact with our family. And I think it's just changed me and my ability to stretch myself in ways that I didn't think I could.
So, I love to replay, as you've listened to these before. So the more that you personally challenge yourself, the more that you realize it's a muscle that's exercising and you can challenge yourself more. Mm-hmm. You realize that in the past you've had limiting thoughts as an aha. And, there's a mindset to this of that this has to work. And that motivates you to pass beyond the limiting thoughts and push beyond the challenges that you've set yourself. Is that a fair replay?
Yes.
If you were to think about someone returning to work after sabbatical, that have had a child or injury or forced time off work, or they are needing a career change into something that's got what they see as a future, what advice would you give them that you think you've adopted yourself? Or maybe I'll split that up to two. Let's just say, what advice would you give them?
Well, I guess it goes back to my aha moments of not having limiting thoughts of yourself, putting yourself out there, having an open mindset, being vulnerable, taking a risk, maybe a measured risk as opposed to, just jumping in without thought. But it has to come back to a little bit of believing in yourself and trusting your instinct. knowing when to push yourself and when to hold back.
So the advice to somebody who's thinking about re-entering the workforce or a career change is don't limit yourself through your thoughts. Take measured risks. Be vulnerable. I want to explore that a little bit more. But believe in yourself, trust your instinct, and know when to push or pull. Push more or pull back.
Mm-hmm.
What about the type of opportunity they should look for? I mean, you're 3 years in now. You know all of us, warts and all, because all of those things applied to a cluster, burns the energy that you've had for this great adventure, right? And I'd like to think we're not that. But now you're in this enough. You've seen enough people that have got small businesses doing things at the same time as us, or even giving consultancy to us. You've got enough of a view. So to those people, what would you say are the essential ingredients, not in their control, their locus of control, but in what they're looking for? What should they choose?
I mean, you've got to choose something that you believe in, something that inspires you, something that motivates you. And that's why this is so successful for me, because I truly believe in it. I'm inspired daily, and by the conversations that we have and the people that we meet and the team that are around us. It means something. And so, exploring something that has a deep meaning for you as an individual has to be a good place to start if you're looking for that next step.
It kind of reminds me of Ikigai again.
Yeah.
What are you passionate about? What does the world need? What are you good at? And then the one you didn't mention actually is what can you make money at?
Yeah.
Because it goes from a great adventure to a great folly if there's not cash.
Absolutely. Well, lucky you if that's not a primary focus for you. But I guess for most of us, financial freedom is in there. So, what's going to give you financial freedom? What's in your control?
I mean, making money feels like a different thing from financial freedom to me.
I guess I tie those in together because financial freedom is so important to me. So making money is financial freedom for me personally. So yes, I understand that there's a distinction for most.
Not limiting thoughts, measured risk, be vulnerable. You want to look for something you can believe in, be inspired by, be motivated by, with the right people, the right team, having the right conversations with some deep meaning, and ideally that you can achieve financial freedom, give or take. They're your thoughts.
Yeah, not just financial freedom. If I think about it, I mean, that's got to be any kind of freedom because the right opportunity offers that to you.
Like what?
The freedom as simple as being able to say at 2:00 on Wednesday, I need to leave the office and go and pick up my kids from school, and I will then be online again at XYZ time, but knowing that there's no pressure. No, not pressure, that's not the right word, but there's no judgment for having a family, for having other priorities other than work and having to split them, because that's a real thing for so many people and has been for me in the past.
Just revisiting a couple of things there, lack of judgment in an environment feels like a good thing to aim for. A challenge that I've always had is that freedom of place and time is a privilege, not a right. And I wonder if that is something that people can truly seek in these things. I don't have an agenda with it, but I'm just thinking about it. It's a difficult thing because I accept it, because it depends on what you want. All of the first things felt like, the rights to aim for, the sort of the right things to aim for, but that subcategory of, freedom of place, time, choice, that's tricky. I'll just roll that around a little bit, and I want to come back to something else. Do you think being vulnerable in the choice of the thing that you're going for, and that's the context. Like, is vulnerability one of the necessary traits when you go in and start something, or to start a new career?
Yeah, well, I think you need to be vulnerable with yourself. I think you need to be able to have that reflection on yourself, and completely look at yourself as a whole and whether this is the right path for you. And the only way you can really explore whether you're going down the right path is by being true to yourself and vulnerable with yourself, I think. And I also think that having that vulnerability with your, whether it be with a mentor or a peer, to go to them and say, this is what I'm thinking, and being open to getting, to being vulnerable with them so that they can actually, maybe give you some guidance, or taking opinions from other people and being open to hearing, what they think for you, or where they may think your strengths lie, or where your weaknesses may lie, where you might be able to spend some time building on some skills. Or, there's a lot of vulnerability in putting yourself into a completely new environment, and it has to start from the decision that you're going to do it, to the journey of actually doing it, and even showing up on the first day in a space that feels completely different and new, whether that be because it's a new business, or same role, new business, or completely new career, or whatever that looks like for you. You're going to feel vulnerable. It's just natural that you're outside of your existing comfort zone. So,
yeah, the way you've articulated that makes me think about a willingness to reflect on where one's skills are at personally, and adapt. And it also makes me think about accepting guidance from a I think you said mentor, or a peer or something. There's a lot in that. There's that careful balance. I just drew a little seesaw. On one side, I've got vulnerability, which is, I accept your counsel, and I'm okay with that vulnerability. On the other side, I'm not quite sure what it is, because there's something else that balances out, and I just need to reflect on what that is. Like, what's the counterbalance to it? Because I notice in myself, just out and out vulnerability is not always the right tactic. That's all.
No, I absolutely, I understand. I mean, it has to come with a balance of some kind of strength to, if you go into everything completely open and vulnerable and don't have any strength behind you, then you'll crumble.
I like that. I like vulnerability and strength in balance. I mean, I really like that as a thought for what it takes. Not limiting thoughts.
Yeah.
Take measured risks. Vulnerability and strength in balance. Mm-hmm. Something you can believe in, something you're inspired by, something that motivates you, something in which you can make money and gives you the freedoms that you need to be the person that you want to be. I mean, I know I'm tailoring the words, but this is what I've heard from you.
Yeah. Thank you.
In preparation for today, I know you looked at employment rates for women, and you were going through some statistics from, was it the Bureau of Statistics?
Yeah, ABS.
Yeah. What are the things that really, took your breath away as you were analysing some of these things?
Yeah, so I was particularly interested in the participation rate of women versus men within a working age group, which I think is 15 to 65 now. Don't quote me on that, but near enough. And what surprised me is actually the participation rate of women and men is not that different. I thought that there would be a larger gap. It looked like something around maybe just under 10%. difference. So I think it was 61% of women are employed or actively seeking versus around 70% of men. So I found that interesting, but sort of diving into it a little bit deeper, what I sort of uncovered was the hours per week were significantly different. So it looks like generally men are working 5 days, whereas women are working 3 to 4 days. So it led me down another path of exploring, what women do once they've had children and they're returning to work. And the majority of women seem to go into roles that are in areas like education, hospitality, customer service, roles where they can take part-time options as opposed to engaging in a full-time career with a direct trajectory towards looking for growth and growth in both career and pay. So it looks like a lot of women are returning to work, but they're having to return on a part-time basis, and they're having to choose roles that are flexible enough and not as demanding on their time, so that they can be the primary carer of children still. And then what that ends up impacting is obviously long-term things like superannuation rates are lower for women than they are for men. And the flow-on effect is that your career stagnates, and that's where you're seeing the bigger gap. And then as you look at the data as you go into slightly older age groups, at the sort of 64 plus end of your working career, it's a lot less women working and still more men working, which surprised me.
Mm-hmm. So you've essentially got still a 10% more men actively working or seeking work, and then there's a bigger delta post 65 of men and working women. And the thing that really sings out to you is the long-term career opportunities and wealth opportunities because of superannuation contributions, that sort of thing's on your mind. Yeah. I mean, that's got to be on the mind for anyone, any mother that had kids taking time off work. Particularly, I would have thought, in this world where there are, I think, I haven't got the statistics, but I imagine divorce rates are increasing, or maybe they've plateaued at 50% of divorces. I mean, I know there's second divorces and third divorces, and that's complicated. But it is an interesting inequity, that scenario, the scenario that's created there.
Yeah, I struggle with the word inequity around it, because I feel like a lot of women choose that because it's their preference to be available for the kids, for somebody to be available for the kids. So challenged by the idea that there's inequity in it, but what I would hate to imagine is there aren't opportunities for women should they choose to go down the path of having a career and not wanting to cut back to part-time hours and not wanting to settle for something so that that stagnates their career, something that gives them the opportunity to flourish. So whether the equal opportunities are there or not, I'm not sure. I guess the challenge in that is it depends on how much time you're taking off to be to focus on parenting, and what that does to the gap in your skills. And there is also some data around that. There's evidence that obviously the longer you take, the harder it is to achieve the same opportunities as your counterpart who hasn't taken the time off. It only seems natural that if you've missed 5 years of growth in a segment, then you're less appealing than the person who's had those 5 years in front of you. I'm not sure what the answer to that is, though.
Yeah, I appreciate the gentle correction on inequity. I think I'm probably more pointing to the end outcome as opposed to the choices along the way. But yeah, I mean, I certainly know that if I had the choice, then I would quite happily be a stay-at-home dad.
No, you'd miss this too much. You love it.
No, I don't know. I love the kids. I think more than this. So no, I think I'm clear on my choice. My only, we've talked about this before. My only responsibility is to raise the next generation, but also treat my partner, you, well. I don't think it's the company has other things for me, and that my responsibility is to the people who work in this ecosystem, and to make sure that they can take care of their families well. And I'm not about a nuclear family and the rest be damned, but I am about priorities and trade-offs. Yeah. So I'm clear on what my job is, I think.
You can stay at home. I'll go to work.
You can have it. I'm interested in the transition into technology. You've come from print, which was just the internet, but on paper. I heard that was the previous medium, and then the internet became it, and then we've got whatever comes next.
Where did I hear that?
What is what do you observe about now being right on the bleeding edge of what's being done, invented, thought of, developed? Like what are your observations on that?
I think I'm lucky in the sense that I did grow up in print, and I have seen it evolve over time. And I have seen some really exciting cutting edge new technology, including AI and automation and all sorts of things applied to printing. And we're talking printing from anything from small scale to large scale, sort of outdoor billboards and banners and stuff. So there's some pretty actually exciting stuff that goes on in the print world that's very innovative. Can't talk. If I think about what we're doing and what I'm seeing, it feels like a natural transition, because print is driven by technology, and what we're doing is obviously driven by technology and what people can do with it and how innovative they can be. And I think it's I think it feels like a natural transition to me, particularly coming from an environment where it was sort of heavy project management, and at one point looking at data and how to integrate data into a document, and how that looks when you actually produce the document, and how to make sure that people are getting the right information on their bills to the right address with the right name on it. It's more complicated than it looks, printing. So it feels like a natural flow from that into what we're doing now. It's exciting. I love it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I suppose that's a good correction as well, or a course correction in terms of my thinking. I think it's a thought I've had in the past, but I've just always finding that the work that we do and the people we do it with is on the frontier. I mean, the recruitment side of the business is one thing, because, yes, it might be new technologies, but the fundamentals of picking humans for humans is, an age-old art. But the technologies they might be working with is something different. Yeah. So I guess I do probably look at the business, and because I'm always being exposed to frontier technology, it's just on my mind that what I'm doing today is nothing like what I did 6 months ago, a year ago, 10 years ago. I mean, it's fundamentally different.
It'll always be changing.
Yeah, maybe just to adjust my own thought there, apart from core technologies like Oracle and Dynamics, and but the periphery of the periphery systems and thinking, maybe that's what's changed. Mm-hmm. When you are interviewing, basically it's always on something new, new technology, new. I mean, I'm 25 years in, so there are some muscles that I've been working. When you take those feelings that you have in terms of how you get to that to be okay with it. What advice would you give candidates who, some of them are interviewing for the first time in their life, a first interview, and they might be in their 40s and 50s, and they've never had to do a first interview before because of the way the world's changed. It's all changed.
Yeah.
And their identity is being challenged. They're looking for a new career ladder, and on that new career ladder, the whole ecosystems around it is moving. I mean, expectations of executives, and let's just assume they're at an executive level, or maybe at a development level. I was going to quote Aldous Huxley and say it's a brave new world, but actually I think it's a terrifying new world for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So the advice, when people are in that scenario because they're changing ladder, finding a new speed in a new place, how are you doing it, and what would you suggest for them?
It is a terrifying new world, and it is intimidating interviewing for the first time and challenging yourself to go through those processes and having to deal with the fear of rejection, and there's so much in it. It comes back to the vulnerability versus strength balance, doesn't it? Being vulnerable enough to put yourself out there, but having the strength to know that setbacks aren't failures, they're opportunities to grow and opportunities to learn. And what do I take from that setback to take into my next opportunity? So it's an ever-evolving opportunity to learn, and as long as you're open to learning, then you're open to opportunity. But I think as soon as you close your mind to learning anything or understanding anything new, you're limiting yourself right there. People know when you show up with a prepared to be open, and I wonder if their instinct says to give somebody who's open to expanding on their existing knowledge an opportunity versus somebody who says, I know it all and this is the way I've always done it, therefore it's the only way. I wonder if you're more likely to get opportunities if you show your openness to explore things, as opposed to being so set in stone in what you know and what you think. I don't know if that really answers your question, Chris.
Yeah, vulnerability and strength and balance again. Enough knowledge that you're willing to back yourself into, but then enough openness to new knowledge, new possibility. Yeah, actually, the thought it took me down was the preparedness of people to be able to articulate their journey and where they're at and what they want and what they need. It's almost like the conversation and being rehearsed enough in it to make it a conversation. I was reflecting on some of the people that we'd seen recently who were deeply capable, and through one reason or another have got quirks of personality, whether they're introvert or a little battle scarred or a little something. And in this ultra competitive marketplace that we're in, it makes it hard for them to get the work that they deserve and, quite frankly, are very capable of doing. And it's that preparedness. I mean, I talk about it some ways, and I wonder, again, I'm not putting thoughts into your head and words into your mouth, I hope. But one of the successes, I think, of this place is that you're surrounded by well-meaning, well-intended, gracious, kind people, and we've changed a lot in the years, right? Nearly 4 years now.
Yeah.
But there is that. And I wonder if that makes it okay in your case. Obviously, I'm none of those things. I'm talking about everybody else. So I just think it makes me think about people looking for work, knowing that most places do have those people. You just have to show up just enough. I'm not talking about being a show person. I mean, show up enough in the first interviews to earn that right to then get to know the people a little bit more. And it's really tricky.
Yeah, absolutely. It is tricky, but that's also what we're here for,
right?
It's about the conversations that we're having, the time that we spend with both candidates and hiring managers, it's all of that time that helps put the pieces of the puzzles together. So when everybody's showing up, they already feel like they sort of know each other enough that they can get on with a conversation to get down to, you know, the real detail of what they need to know. I think that's important. I think, and it's my favorite thing of what we do. I love that process. Maybe sometimes I even become a little bit too personally attached to people.
Like a limpet.
You can't see my face. You can only imagine. I think I just eye-rolled Chris.
Yeah. Look, I think this is no easy thing, turning up to this and being peppered with questions by me. Do you have any questions for me? Like, when you came into this, what were you thinking that I might ask you? And is there anything that you thought, oh, I'll ask him this back?
Well, I was thinking about, I've listened to a few of your podcasts, believe it or not. And I know that the question you ask everybody at the beginning of a podcast is what's important to you at the moment. And I wondered, Chris McGowan, what's important to you at the moment?
It's probably both a tactical thought and a strategic thought. Tactical's now, strategic's the future. Nothing in business can get in the way of continuing to have this business stand up. And I don't think that I am a autocrat or a directive leader. I'm more of a coach style leader. And I think that I might need to embrace some of those alternate sides of my personality that can be that way. And it's really important to me because food on the table, roof over our head is physical safety, which leads to psychological safety, which leads to, you know, all the other things in Maslow's hierarchy. The irony, though, for me, is there is a concept which I've been playing around with, which is the I called Maslow's heavy lift, which is my own term, which is about wanting to do it all at once. You know, I don't think I imagine a world where it's just all about, you know, the house, food and table, roof over our head, and am I feeling okay? It's doing some good along the way. And so worrying that problem of business and family survival whilst doing good along the way is a big tension point for me. And, you know, pain is the difference between what you wish were true and what is true. And the reality is I wish this business and everything around it was all taken care of and I didn't have to work like I do. But the reality is I've got to work like a dog, and therefore the delta is the pain. So it's probably a pain mitigation technique as well at the moment. Like, it would be interesting to do that. It sounds tactical. It's now. It's the next 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year. Let me give you the strategic, then you can ask me a question. Strategically, you know, I really care about building something that has legacy. And I don't want to be ashamed or embarrassed about creating legacy. And legacy is not about being the biggest, the most famous, but it's something that is enough of a punctuation in personal, family, commercial history that people would say, oh, do you remember when that thing happened? The kids might say it, you know, your partner might say it, your friends might say it, business communities might say it. So strategically, I do have my mind and my focus on building something that we can, that punctuates, you know, what's out there, that stands for something, that achieves something. Important to me is that I would give all of us away just to make sure, you know, tactically or strategically, that the people in my life are taken care of. These things aren't mutually exclusive. This is the challenge. They're an ecosystem. You know, the business, the family's health, the family's safety. You know, like all of it. They're all together. I just think that one of the biggest levers that I can pull, or dials that I can twist, are the ones that I said tactically and strategically that are on my mind.
I really understand what you mean about building a legacy. I like to imagine that everything that we're doing, everything that I'm doing, is also showing the children what they're capable of. And obviously for all of them, but particularly the girls, you know, I like the idea of them knowing that women can also do anything they want to do, ways to. Something that makes the kids proud really means a lot to me. Pain mitigation techniques. What do you mean by that?
Pain is the difference between what you wish and what is true.
Yeah.
Therefore, achieve what you wish, and that's pain mitigation.
Okay.
And wish, by the way, isn't just a hope. I draw this distinction. Very specifically, it means deterministic optimism, which is anything can be done. You can wish for anything, and you can have anything that you're willing to work for, plan to, and do. Work for, plan to, do. What I notice is lots of people I deal with wish for something, say the words, and over time there's a distinct lack of action. And so my pain mitigation is, what do I want? You know, what am I aiming for? And it's making me uncomfortable for some people I notice in my life, but this has got to get done. It's the action orientation around moving towards the thing that I wish for. That's pain mitigation.
Yeah. So rather than wishing for something and hoping that it just lands in your lap, you're working towards getting what you wish for.
Yeah. I mean, by the way, what I wish for isn't to be the world's most famous or the world's most rich, the world's most anything. I mean, my wishes are actually quite attainable. It doesn't mean that when I reach that wish platform that I don't envisage another platform. You know, I'm really in my, you know, this isn't the forum, but I'm clear on what that looks like. And it isn't anything grandiose. It's freedom, stability. Yeah. You know, and that has some metrics underneath it. But yeah. Any other questions? This is my podcast, not yours.
No, I know. No.
All right. Well, congratulations on your first podcast, Ali.
Oh, thank you, Chris. Thank you for being such a gentle host.
We had this crazy idea that we might invite other people on that are partner businesses, you know, where they get to work with their significant other and have a bit of fun with it. So watch this space. Ali McKee, thank you for coming on the ThunderCast.
Thank you, Chris.
Goodbye.
Bye.